I do have Camille's request for Inner Yin. And she said that you said there's about 30 uses for Inner Yin. I'm not sure.
Well, that's what you threw out there in the last moments of our meeting last week, and I didn't want to ask because we were so close to the end.
No, that's fine. So now my challenge is to get to at least 28, right?
Well, if you saw my last response, I said I would be happy with 10.
Oh, okay. Well, I think I can do 10. So let me see. Okay, I'll start historically. So historically, it was a point, I can't remember if I think it got started as a point for constipation on the left. And by the way, it's a trapezius releasing point. Okay, so I do get 2 for credit right now. I'm counting.
Yeah.
So that was like how it was originally introduced by Kiko. And so constipation, because on the left side, because the adductors and the descending colon sort of meet on the left side. So, the muscle, so they influence each other because they kind of like, they coincide at the perineal floor level a little bit. So it has a way of sending a movement possibility to the smooth muscles of the large intestine, of the descending colon. So that was the origin of it. Then the other thing that happened was there was a woman by the name of Itiani, who was a gynecologist person who lived in San Diego. And
she was amazing.
Yeah, she was quite something. And she used it for any sort of hormonal issues. And you see it very clearly that women will often have puffiness there or ropiness there, or both, ropey and puffy. And it does influence hormonal places. Now, so now the question is whether Inner Yin is kidney or is it liver kind of thing. And in my opinion, you can take it either. You can take it either as liver 9 if you want, or you can take it as liver 9 level of on the kidney line. Okay. And then of course, people take the kidney line slightly differently. Some people take it, almost kind of behind, because it's supposed to go from kidney 10 to the perineal floor. That's the official way the channel is supposed to go. But very few people are going to really take the kidney channel that far back. Practically speaking. Now, of course, practically speaking, there are no real points there. And then the other kind of use of it, like official that exists outside of what I say, is it does release the scalenes, and therefore it releases the scalenes. Now you have at least 10 more uses because we already said trapezius, but it releases the neck. It releases the shoulders. It releases the elbow, the wrist, that, RSIs, anything to do with the arms. Okay, as well as headaches, because the scalenes, the brachioradial plexus controls not just blood and nerve supply to the arm, but also to the head. Okay, and of course, if it's hormonal, then it's, so it's something that's worth trying, at least for headaches and stuff like that. Now, the next thing, that the really big thing about it is, so sometime in the late 90s, I started noticing that Inner Yin was doing a lot of things structurally in the body. And, and then other people said the same thing. Yeah, I don't know why, but when I use this point, I always, it always does something. It benefits. So I started thinking about it, and I realized that what happens is people talk about their core, and they would usually point somewhere around their navel. And occasionally, if the person's a little bit more kind of like aware, whatever, more into it, they'll point to somewhere below their navel. But people think of their core as like, say Ren 6, Ren 4, something like that. And I think that's a mistake. Okay. I mean, of course, your core in a way is there, but actually your core is probably between your two ASISs, somewhere, but below, between the two hip bones. So in that sense, it's true. If you're talking about the core in terms of center of gravity, which of course can change for different people depending on how heavy they are in the shoulders, for example. But if you're talking about the core as in your perineal, the ability to lift the perineal floor, okay, it doesn't start at the perineal floor. You can't lift the perineal floor from the perineal floor. Okay, I have no idea what these muscles are called. You know, I know they're muscles that create some sort of tube, circular ring on the perineal, you know, in the perineum. The way those get lifted, as I understand it, is from the legs, from between the legs. It's the activation of the inner thigh that's actually going to lift the perineal floor. If your perineal floor is lifted, then you have a whole bunch of things that get resolved because now your whole spine is supported. Now there's more space for the whole abdomen. So now you can talk about digestive issues, you can talk about spinal issues, etc., etc. I mean, then it just becomes infinite, you know, from that point onwards. So it's just kind of like looking at Inner Yin as the point that creates space in the body that allows the perineal floor to lift so that the torso can be what I call hollow or fluffy, as opposed to what happens. See, often if people, you know, you tell people, well, use your core, and what they'll do is they'll crunch the muscles of the abdomen, and they'll pretend that they're Schwarzenegger, you know, which really is not very helpful. And actually what they want to do is lengthen and hollow the abdomen so it's soft. Your core strength is not the muscles contracting. It's actually the muscles sort of softening, but you know, there's like an attention quality there. There is what Iyengar used to call an intelligence there. So without that intelligence, no matter how much you contract, there are certain things you won't be able to do that quote unquote require core strength. Okay, so you know, just because you have tight abdomen or beautiful abdomen, you know, you have a 6-pack, 10-pack, whatever it is. No, I've heard of 10-packs too. So, you know. Anyway, that kind of abdomen does not mean you have core strength. Core strength is the ability to, you know, it's the ability to do things with the least amount of effort in the body, because the concentration, the attention is in that small area without necessarily producing tension. It's attention. And that sort of holds everything in place and allows other things to extend. Does that make sense? Okay. So therefore, any structural problem, I generally look at Inner Yin. By the way, the other point that does a sort, you know, that's very similar to it is on the glute medius. Then that's side gallbladder 27 or Mushu. Okay, so they're good friends. Okay, and what will happen is when you don't have, because most of us sort of slump in the inner thighs and we let everything sort of just drop down. Okay, because of that, what happens, all sorts of structural problems start to happen, because what happens is if you're not using your legs, okay, then the extremity, which is the shoulder and the neck, is going to try and take over and lift you up from the shoulders. Okay, so you either get your shoulders up in your ears, or you get a lot of tension in the neck or the jaw. Things like that. So all of these things, you know, if you want to give the person the sense that they can, quote unquote, grab the perineal floor through Inner Yin and Mushu, and then the neck, the shoulder, the jaw, the teeth, you know, the eyes even can release. Okay, so that's kind of like where Inner Yin comes from, or comes into.
Well, that's more than 30.
No, it's okay, good. I don't want to be short, you know. It's like, it's very embarrassing. You say 30,
well, I think when
you
throw in any structural problem,
yes, well, it becomes infinite. Yeah, it's, I mean, obviously it's an exaggeration, but well, it's like one of those miracle points. And so one more thing about it. So I was introduced at this point by Kiko, and it was called Inner Yin. God knows why it's called Inner Yin, and the definition is 5 fingers above kidney tip, and needle it towards the gallbladder or the stomach channel. In other words, don't needle it just straight in, but needle it upwards, slightly upwards as well. And sometimes even better if you can do it when the patient's face down, you're actually needling it down towards the table. It's a little more convenient, but of course you're getting the point from further behind. Now, later on, I realized this point is actually, it is also called Shin Yin Men. Yin Men is, Shin means new, like New Year, like right now it's, we have New Year. But it also means the Yin Men, Yin Abundance is Bladder 37. Okay. So it's called New Bladder 37. I don't know if some Chinese people decided, oh, we need Bladder 37, that'll be more convenient to needle from the front or something like that. I don't know, because, say they're having people sit, they can't really do Bladder 37, or if they're having them lie down on the face up, they can't do. So I don't know why they decided to call it New Bladder 37. And Bladder, so not so, I don't use Bladder 37 so much. Okay, although it is a fairly decent point. I know it's hardly ever used, but if you think about it, it's in the middle of one of the biggest muscles of it's the belly of the biggest muscle in the body, the hamstring, which controls most of your posture also. Okay, so in the same way, Inner Yin doesn't get it quite from the same place. And by the way, if it gets this kind of big muscle, then it possibly has a relationship to sugar metabolism. Okay, because sugar metabolism and muscles are related. Muscles don't work without sugar. They need energy. It has something to do with energy production.
So are you saying Inner Yin, or are you saying UB37?
Both. But UB37 is a very inconvenient point.
Yes. Okay. Well, because Kiko always said that the hamstrings go into spasm because of poor sugar metabolism.
Exactly.
Okay.
So now the other part of this kind of story is Bladder 36, which is a point that people often kind of leave behind because extremely inconvenient. Not just location, but in terms of like, do you really want to mess around with people's, butt cracks sort of thing? Well, it's not the butt crack, it's the underside of the buttocks. So, it's kind of, most people just kind of like, we don't go there sort of situation. But actually Bladder 36, because it's the insertion of the hamstring, it affects your whole posture. And so many people, if you look at how a person sits when they come in, what they'll do is they'll sit sort of backwards. And I don't just mean that they're leaning back. What they're doing is they're kind of curling a little bit under on the buttocks. They're sitting on their buttocks rather than sitting on their thighs. Okay. So again, what that happens, the moment you're sitting on your buttocks, no matter how much you're pushing forward, if you're not sitting actually on your hamstring, on your sit bones, everything is going to curl downwards. Everything is going to congest in the torso. Okay, so Bladder 36 is a super, super important point. And I use it a fair amount. And I might use 2 or 3 needles, and it may not be 36 like exactly in the middle. It may be more towards the center, it may be more lateral or whatever. But and the point name itself is called Cheng Fu. And both characters mean to support. Cheng often is used as receiving, but also to support. So to receive the support or to support the support of the body, so, I know it's kind of hokey sometimes to go to point names and make up stories about why they made them, or to say, look at how important, what an incredible name it is. But sometimes it really is. And sometimes it's like, yeah, it has an incredible name because somebody named this point after the mistress and she had a cute name or whatever. We just don't know. No, I mean, we really don't know what the story is behind the names. But in this case, I really do think that the name represents, I mean, you can just see you know, just anatomically, the structure, it's pretty obvious that this is where this is the last point. It's not even a torso point, but in some ways, this is the last point on the torso. Yes, it's on the leg, sort of, but this is where all your weight is going to come onto. Okay, and the other points that are kind of, they're not equivalent by in any way, but you know, liver 12, spleen 12, and stomach 31, which are kind of on the other side. Well, they don't get the weight quite as much, but they have a very strong effect also. So liver 12, spleen 12 are very strong, correlate very strongly with the autonomic nervous system. And stomach 31 correlates very strongly with structural issues. Also, it can be a really good support for it. Stomach 41 at the ankle is the other companion for inner yin for structural, because that's, if stomach 41 is shifted, if your ankle is shifted, okay, or the way your weight goes onto the ankle rather, then everything else kind of goes wrong from there. Okay, so for almost any structural issue, I'm always going to test stomach 41. You know, no matter what it is, back pain, but, and I can't tell you how many times I haven't done it when they're on the table and they get off the table and they go, well, there's this left, you know, like, you know, say it's back pain, they're bending over and they say, you know, which I couldn't test when they were on the table. And they go, no, there's still blah, blah left. And so I press on stomach 41, they're standing and have them say bend over. And then they, oh, gone. And I put a press tack on stomach 41. Lots of people, I would leave press tacks on stomach 41. Okay, so those are kind of correlatories of inner yin. They're kind of helpful with inner yin and serve a little bit of the same purpose. I think that the main thing for me is how much, as a culture or as people, as humans, you know, we just don't use our legs. You know, we don't have the same ability that animals have, which is kind of like to just like totally push away, you know, like look at leaps that animals make. They totally bring the knee, that they totally go into a total crouch, which most of us can't do. Okay, we're not good squatters for the most part, unless we live in India. Okay, and then all we're doing is we're squatting. We're not actually pushing out of that squat. But animals are like, they're squatting and pushing out of that squat and leaping, so they have an incredible use of the legs. Now, it may well be that because they have front legs, you know, it kind of helps in the balance, you know, so it facilitates the back legs a little bit more, and they're not totally supported by the back legs. In other words, the weight doesn't, you know, the weight really doesn't go fully on the leg in the way that we do with the upright posture. But for us, you know, this sort of thing that we're upright and we're standing on top of the leg, and then the leg just receives the weight and doesn't do anything with it. It's kind of a disaster. Okay, I mean, it just creates this whole kind of downward energy. And all you have to do is push your heels down a little bit, not like a huge amount, and everything gets better. And I can't tell you how many people, you know, I have a woman, for example, right now, and she has this sort of unexplained hip pain that she gets. And unfortunately, she's a judge, so she can't go anywhere at work. You know, it's like you can't have a trial, and you know, like on the one hand, you know, you can't say, excuse me, but I need for 5 minutes. I guess you could, but you know, it's you're dependent. There's all these people dependent on you, sitting there with a certain sense of decorum. I guess unlike the other trial that's happening right now, but in her case, apparently there is some decorum. And so I said to her, you know, just push your heels down and make sure. Take your feet a little wider, your knees apart. Nobody can see, right? It's okay. And just send your heels down to the ground and sit on the front. Sit on your thighs, not on your buttocks. And she said it really does help. It kind of helps her be able to continue. You know, so does it solve the problem for, you know, no, I mean, it's a little different, but it shows you how important it is to have the use of the legs, and we just don't use our legs as a species. And if you go, especially, I mean, I can't say about everywhere in the world, but you see this. I remember when I went to Indonesia the first time in Jakarta, and I was like, wow, all these people, it's like they're shuffling. You know, it's just like, you know, I guess it's their way of like being cool. Like, you know, I'm just like letting it all hang out, but everything just drops onto the floor. So we don't see it quite so pronounced in our culture, for, you know, in the US, you know, or in Europe, but it does exist. There is a certain amount of it, you know, constantly, and that's really not good. So the energetics of Inner Yin really starts at the ankle, either at kidney 6 or stomach 41, or but it's how you use your foot. If your foot is being pressed into the floor and it sends an upward motion, then the perineal floor lifts. Okay. The other thing I would say about Inner Yin is, so you know how the tongue people, that's the tongue people, talk a lot about, you know, the extremities are used for acute situations, and the further in you get towards the torso, the more it is for chronic conditions. So points above the knee are supposed to be for chronic conditions. Okay, which is kind of odd because, as we know, most acupuncturists don't use a lot of points above the knee and above the elbow. It's kind of like this whole area from the elbow to the shoulder and from the knee to the hip is basically kind of doesn't exist for the most part. And yet it's supposed to be and since most of our patients come for chronic issues, you'd think that would be the you know, the place where we will all be interested in, instead of the below the knee, which is the traditional 5 shoe points, you know, the big deal. So that's something to consider. How come, you know, why it is that may have something to do with why Inner Yin is such an important point. And the other thing is, anyone who's very overweight, where there's a lot of, you know, I don't mean like, you know, some people are chubby. I mean, but when I say really overweight, I mean when they stand, or even when they're lying down, it's like, it's not that they're popping out of their skin, but there's like little balloons. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like there's like ripples. So the skin is no longer smooth. It's sort of boom, 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 you know, because there's so much extra tissue. That kind of person, when you put a needle, say on kidney 7 or spleen 6 or spleen 9 or whatever, you put a needle below the knee, because there's all these layers, these tubes, or I'm not sure what to call them, they're pushing against the stimulation of the needle. Okay, you're stimulating a needle by the foot. Okay, but there's so much tissue that it has so much what we might call dampness that the stimulation has to go through before it reaches the torso or the brain or whatever. It needs to be shuttled because it's like gravity is pushing against the stimulation of the needle. So in someone who's really overweight, really obese, you kind of need a point above the knee to shuttle the point from below the knee. Okay. Otherwise, the treatment is not as effective. You're just not going to get as much mileage, you know, because there's all this fat or whatever kind of pushing it, you know, that you have to go through. So you have to put another needle in. So for, you know, if you're using spleen points, you might use spleen 10, add spleen 10. If you're using liver points, you might add liver 9. And if you're using kidney points, you'll add Inner Yin. So that's like another use of it. And that reminded me of something else, and I lost it. Oh well. Anyway, I think that's the end of the Inner Yin lecture.
That's super. You know, it would be really helpful, and I don't want to take the whole time in case Mary Jo has questions, but you know, I'd love to hear a rundown of some of your favorite points, and you know, the many applications of it. To go point by point rather than topic by topic would be, I think, hugely helpful sometime.
Okay, I'll try to do that. I did.
Well, you did this quite
Spontaneously.
spontaneously, and well, I think you talked to half an hour, so very bravo.
Yeah, it's like a friend of mine says, you just have to wind me up, and then just go in the back and turn the thing, and then I just keep going. So it doesn't take much. It's true.
It's a lovely trait, Avi. Thank
It
you.
can go both ways, but that's all right.
Well, because you are such a masterful acupuncturist and you have so much experience, so you can speak off the top of your head. So
I
appreciate
will
it.
tell you, I will say this. I mean, just for, I will look into doing that. But, well, there's two problems with this specific format, which is, although the other format was similar, it doesn't, it's hard to demonstrate in this format because because I'll do all my favorite points on the neck and I can point. So, but if, with the body, it's a lot harder. I did do a class for E-Lotus. Okay. That was, it was one of those lunch webinars. So it was this kind of format, except, there's a PowerPoint with it. And I did do, it was called something like unusual usage of points.
Ah, okay.
So, and that presentation still exists on E-Lotus. So if you go to, I'm not sure what the website is.
I think it's elotus.com, and that's great because Tina owes me a class, so I did
no,
support
that
for
class
her.
is free. Don't use
Oh, that
one.
one's a free one? Oh,
Do
okay.
not use that one.
Okay.
That was a free class. Don't reserve your credit for
Yeah.
worth it. This is totally free. And and I can also send you the PowerPoint, so because you actually,
Oh, that would be lovely. Yeah.
and then you can save yourself the hour of watching it, because in a PowerPoint you can see it a lot faster.
Oh,
You can scan it. But yeah, I'll definitely send you the PowerPoint for it.
thank you. Thank you.
Abby, that I meant to ask actually
Yes.
before about that E-Lotus, your stuff on that. I did watch something on YouTube. I think it was like some shoulder points you were doing, and I think it was an E-Lotus lecture.
Uh-huh.
Do you have a lot of other lectures on that platform, or is it just
Those two, the classes that I did for E-Lotus, basically kind of don't exist. Yeah, but honestly, there's plenty of classes of mine on the web, full classes, and you've attended quite a few, and there's all that stuff exists. It's just not under E-Lotus, and then you just don't pay. So just as well, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I'm glad you exist, Avi.
Well, thank you. I think some people will disagree with you, but that's okay.
That's okay. I will disagree with them.
Hey, why not? It seems like
politely and respectfully.
Oh, well, apparently you're still capable of that. That's good, because I thought 2020 marks the year of the rat, means that we no longer have any sense of respect.
Well, and I didn't get to formally say, but Happy New Year to both of you. And
you. Yeah.
Rat is very much about scientific inquiry and details. So I think that things will really shift.
I hope so, but I
mean, last year was all about let's just have fun and friendship and party and make connections and network. But this is really, well, no, but I mean in the sense of stick together and solidarity. But Rat is not about that. Rat is about getting to the little nitty gritty details and making connections that you didn't make before. So it's going to be a good year for science.
Okay, well, yeah, I was really more thinking about civility, but
everybody's going to be too stressed out to be civil.
Yeah, well, no, I was going to say that the previous year, when you said it's a year about, oh, let's have fun and be in solidarity, it seems like the Senate Republicans are doing a really good job at that.
Yeah, well, I mean, within factions, yes, but I mean, that's what it's all about, is stand together, Anyway, Mary Jo doesn't need to hear about American politics for sure.
we get quite a lot of coverage of it here, actually, Camille, as well.
Oh. Yeah, I would imagine.
Well, it's kind of interesting, because here, I mean, there's a lot of coverage, but they just came out with a poll that says that people just kind of lost interest. I mean, they just can't handle it anymore. They just don't care. So they avoid it, and all the networks want to put on their soap operas instead, because they'll get more viewers that way. So I just think it's interesting that we're more interested in soap operas than we are in impeachment options. One way or the other, doesn't matter, but we're more interested. And just like in Britain, apparently they're more interested in Megxit than in Brexit. More coverage. No, I mean, I was shocked when they said, well, people are much more interested in the Megxit thing. I'm like, really? She is that popular? I mean, she's a cute girl, but so she's exiting the royal family. So, anyway, nothing to do with acupuncture that I know of.
They say that's contributing a lot to anxieties, or
oh yes,
all this constant news feed the whole time. That people are absorbing so much negativity, and it's translating into anxiety and stress in the body as well.
Yeah.
Well, and Ireland has been one of the biggest sticking points with Brexit. So I'm sure it's just huge there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's and I think it is true that we're, as a culture, we know that we shouldn't be exposing ourselves constantly to the news and this, that, and the other. On the other hand, we're addicted to it at this point, because it's not like it used to be 30 years ago when you woke up in the morning and listened to the news on the radio and then watched at night whatever late night news. Now it's like, or maybe you read the paper or whatever, but now it's like, people are at work and they're constantly on their computers and they're constantly bombarded with I'm not on Twitter, so I can't tell, but I can see it everywhere I go. I mean, it's on the computer screen. It's impossible to turn off, or rather, it's totally possible. But one feels that if I don't do it, then what? I can't walk anywhere. So yeah, it is a huge phenomenon. So anyway.
Maybe just before you leave, maybe just on the hormonal aspect of it.
Yeah.
Just what are your thoughts on that? Or?
So often women with hormonal issues will have, when you rub it and you move from the knee upwards, you'll find bumps and it will be painful. And it will have a quality. It's sort of like, it can be bumpy, and at the same time, it's a weird softness. There's just something that's not quite right there. So I would needle it, and then if there's too much pain, and then I check it against whatever else. Now, if there's too much pain on Inner Yin, you can't needle it. Since it's a hormonal point, you can start with, see what happens if I needle UB66, which is another hormonal point. Okay. What happens when I needle Bladder 2, which is a hormonal point, or small intestine 3, which is, small intestine 3 is really a little bit more of a pituitary point rather than hormonal, but if it's pituitary, then it's hormonal also, because pituitary controls hormones. Then, now, Bladder 2 and Inner Yin are correlated anyway. Not nothing to do, but not just because of hormones, but because of this thing that what happens is, so Bladder 2 represents your upper dantian, okay, so it kind of represents your yin tang, okay, or the pituitary or whatever, it represents the hollowness of the head, whereas Inner Yin affects the hollowness of the lower dantian. In between you have your chest, which is the middle dantian, or Ren17 sort of understanding. So the Bladder 2, and so often what would happen, so if I'm looking at the protocol for creating the perineal floor lift, which starts at the ankle, it starts with kidney 6 and or stomach 41, with Inner Yin, with Mushu, side gallbladder 27, and then up here in the throat, I have a choice of either stomach 9, under the teeth, or Bladder 2. And it all kind of depends on
under the what? What?
Under the teeth. So take it's kind of like, okay, so take stomach 6, go under the gum line, or under the teeth line, and then just take it forward. So don't take it quite to the center, but so, or below stomach 4 maybe.
So just behind the jaw, like as soon as
I would call it under the jaw. Do you see what I'm saying?
But I guess, are you needling like almost against the jaw?
I'm needling up into I guess it's the gums or the bone, the maxilla. I'm needling as if I'm needling into the tooth.
Right. So
not anywhere near as long.
So when I'm identifying the point, am I in the fleshy part just on the edge of the jaw, or is it further in?
It's on the edge of the bone.
On the edge of the bone. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
The people for whom it's suitable are the ones who are going to have incredible, I mean, you touch it and you go, my God, what the hell are you doing? There's like huge tension right there. I can't produce it. It's not in my, I don't have the control of the muscle, but people who have it, they cannot relax that muscle.
So you needle directly into it to relax the muscle.
Well, first I do the lower part, giving them a sense of grabbing at the bottom so that they can let go here. The reason why that muscle's so tight, why it's so tight there, they're trying to grab up here what they can't hold from the feet and the inner legs.
Oh, okay.
So it's a way of sending the body a message. It's not really about relaxing that muscle as much as it's trying to say to the body, look, if you let go of that muscle, what are you going to have to do? Oh, I'm going to have to grab my perineal floor. Okay, which is much more important than doing this. So this is sort of a sideline. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a way of getting it. Your main points were done already. You already got the perineal floor going, and now what you're trying to do is get rid of the fluff or the extra that the person's doing because they don't have the perineal floor. The problem is, for some people, that extra, that compensatory mechanism of lifting up here is so strong, it's not going to just relax just because now they don't even understand. I mean, they're not. The body doesn't understand that once the legs are working, they don't need all that armor, all that lifting from the extremity. So you have to kind of force it to relax on its own. Plus, that will reinforce the perineal floor. So you have different choices because people can do it from the eyes, literally. They can do it in the throat, and they can literally do it from the jaw.
That's so much in keeping with the idea within cranial sacral therapy that when the sacrum is really tight, that it causes us to balance our head in inappropriate ways.
Yes.
That sounds like a fantastic point in conjunction with cranial sacral work.
Yeah, chances are it will, but like I said, it's a particular person. That this point is really a great point with. It's not every, it's not like that's why for the top I have a choice of 3, stomach 9 or this one or bladder 2.
Thank you. That's fabulous.
Right. Anything else?
Yes, I think I just the Infinity treatments with the ion pumping cords?
Yes. Yeah.
Would you think that it would be too much to say do just for somebody, let's say, that has kidney, that you might want to do the kidney protocol on?
The chow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, but yes, that. And would you think it's too much to do the ion pumping and the we call it the kidney protocol, as we know, kidney 727?
Oh no, not at all. So So what I personally do with Infinity treatment, to me, is it's kind of the opposite of fluff. Fluff is what I call when you put fluff on top of the cake, you've made the cake and you put like extra layers on. That's quote unquote fluff. Infinity is, you can say fluff also if you like, but it's the fluff that comes under the cake. Okay, so I start with usually with a person, if I'm going to do infinity, what I'll do is I'll do the infinity treatment. Now, I personally do infinity treatments without needles. Okay, you can do them with needles, but I just tape the cords on the point and I spark the red clip, which is always on the left. So, and hope they either feel it where you sparked, like left lung 7-8, or they might feel it on right kidney 6. Either way, or they might feel both. That's fine. So that's what I do. And then, so that kind of gets you a clearing of a fair amount of stuff in the abdomen, and then I go for the other points. Now, because there are people, so there's I will needle and I will keep going. Now, your problem is this, that if you are, well, 2 problems here. First, I check because, as you know, I don't like checking one thing at a time. I check everything and I check all my treatment options. So I'm not going to do an infinity treatment, then check the abdomen and then decide on what else I'm going to do. I've already decided for the most part what else I'm going to do because I've already checked all the points I believe are useful for this person. So I'll do the infinity, and maybe now kidney 7 looks like it's not necessary, but I'm still going to do it. Now your problem, the other problem in the example that you had, which is what happens that they had adrenal. Okay, they had below kidney 16, 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock. And you actually wanted to do kidney 6, not kidney 7. You want to do kidney 6 and 27. Now there's a slight problem here because your right side kidney 6 is tied into the black clip. Do you just not do the point and just leave the black clip on it because it's already been stimulated? Or do you put the needle in and put the black clip on it? And I really don't have a clear answer on that. But I'm just saying this is the kind of dilemmas that you can encounter when you do that. But yes, absolutely. Infinity treatments for me are not contradictory. They don't stand on their own. I still do needles afterwards. They are needleless treatments, but I still add needles afterwards.
So you just tape the actual connection and
I tape the clip onto the skin, okay, and make sure that the metal part of the clip is still exposed. So so I can spark it. Because if you spark the plastic, nothing happens. Okay, then they tape the black clip on the right side. Okay, and then do the other cord, the left foot to the right arm. So it's always left arm to right leg, left leg to right arm. Okay, and then I spark the red, the metal part of the clip that's touching the skin. I spark it. They should feel something. It shouldn't be horrible, but they should feel a little bit of something, and that's it. You can come back and spark 10 minutes later if you want, but no big deal. Now you can do it with needles and you can do it without the sparking. That's totally fine also.
So you leave that in then as you continue your adrenal treatment.
And then, so I did my iron pumping cords, taped on the skin, spark them. And now I'd already checked that I want to do kidney 7 with 27 or kidney 9 and 27, or I want to do whatever else I want to do. Then I proceed a needle. And the checking was already done, and I rechecked to make sure the abdomen is changing. But like I said, there's a possibility that the infinity treatment would have taken away all of the abdominal findings, which is why I check everything in advance.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
All right, no problem.
Yes, I have been doing them with needles, though.
Sorry, you've been doing them with needles.
With needles.
Like I said, I was when I first encountered this, I was taught it without needles and taping it on the skin. But I know that people doing it with needles and without sparking. Because if you're doing it on a needle, you don't need to spark. An iron pumping cord, a single or a double iron, but an iron pumping cord that has 2 clips, okay, a red and a black, does not need to be sparked.
Yeah.
There's one diode in there, and it creates a gradient. And because you have a needle that's going inside the body, the electrical circuit is basically complete that way. But if you're taping it, there's no, you need to spark it to conduct. The reason why you're sparking it with a regular iron pumping cord is only when it's taped, because there's nothing going inside connecting to the body's electricity. So you have to like pump it, you have to jump start it. With a 3 bypass cord, you have to jump start it because there's 2 diodes, so there's no natural selection for the gradient of the electricity.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm the wrong person to ask the details, because electronics and I are not, I'm not into electronics and stuff. But my understanding is that because there's 2 diodes in the 3 bypass cord, you have to jump start it with a black clip in order to get things circulated. However, Kawai himself, what he often did was he would just connect the needles to external electric stim, not pachi, just regular electric stim. And if the cords of the 3 bypass cord were on needles that were already with electric stim, he said that you don't need the pachi. That's, it's not my style. I mean, there's a number of things that Kawai did that were just clearly beyond my capacity. The amount of needles with electricity and the amount of moxa. And he did every needle got a huge bulb of moxa on it. He didn't do okyu, he did kyutoshin. And I have no tolerance for I have no capacity to do that kind of moxa. I'm just like, it just smells too much. The only moxa I do is direct moxa.
Yeah, it's terrible for your lungs day in and day out.
Yes, so the secret, so people asked Kawai about it, and he said, oh no, he laughed about it. He was like, oh, it must be some weird American superstition and stuff. But then after, I actually treated him, and it turns out he had something, what I understood was water in the lungs. So I don't think it was so nothing, but I think he's still alive. I mean, it's like different people have constitutions that can take certain things. But yeah, I personally, let's put it this way, even if kyutoshin was really good for my health, to breathe it all day, I still wouldn't do it. I can't stand the smell. I mean, I feel like I'm in some sort of marijuana den. I just can't. It just, I don't know. I don't like that smell. I never liked smoking. I've never liked other people smoking. I come from the generation where my parents smoked in the house. I'm allergic to secondhand smoke. Like yesterday I walked into a supermarket and one of the cashiers was standing outside, and this, in California, you're not allowed to smoke within 50 feet of the entrance. Where I live, you can smoke right on top of the door. And it drives me every time I walk into a place that has someone smoking. I feel like smacking them. I get so upset. So I have an issue with smoke, unfortunately. So moxa, I can do direct moxa, no problem at all. But of course I use Japanese grade, so it doesn't smell. But the moxa sticks or those things that you put on needles, I can't, unfortunately, I can't handle it. So it may be great for the patient, but they have to go somewhere. What I do instead, I do have a heat lamp, which I don't think is as effective. But what I do is I have I take a sock and put agricultural corn in it. The whole corn, but not the human kind. The human kind pops. So I put that corn in the sock, and I tie the sock. I put it in the microwave, and I put like 3 cups of the corn in it. So I put it for like 5 minutes in the microwave. I put it right where the needle is, not on top of the needle, but next to it. That seems to do the job just as well.
Also, you can do a drop of essential oil of mugwort.
Oh, okay. And that's, does it
I get it.
warm? Or?
No, it's not so much warming, but you actually do get some of the properties. And And in some cases also, this is from Jeffrey, in some cases we get the food grade from Original Swiss Aromatics in Marin.
Yeah.
And that one's a food grade quality, and you could put 1 drop on the tongue. For example, he uses that for opening up the daimai. So I find it very effective. And there are some brands of that are more mixtures of things that have mugwort in them, like they sell them as sprays as a way of an alternative to moxa. I don't know how good they are, but I think that the essential oil and then doing a heat lamp or doing like the little corn bags or bean bags can be effective.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, what Kawai did, you know, it's a whole. I mean, he literally he took the phrase "genjo," you know, acupuncture, very literally. Like there was no such thing as a needle without moxa, because this is what it means: needle with a long-term heating. That's what genjo means. And it was like, it didn't matter. I mean, he wasn't trying to warm you up. I mean, it wasn't like with the same ideologies as TCM and stuff. I mean, he had scalp needles, ear needles. If there was a needle in your body, a needle alone does not count. So he was looking at something different. I mean, a friend of mine, well, Brandon says, you know, he was just like moving the chi like hell on these people. So how can you not get better? You know, so, you know, but for that, I don't know if it's so easy to find substitute for the kind of thing that he was doing. It was really, because it wasn't like he was choosing 1 or 2 points. It was, if he was going to needle, it came with a glob of moxa on top. You know, there was never a free needle. You know, if a needle without moxa did not exist, that from what I've seen. So it's a different. I don't know. I really don't know. I tried for a few weeks, and I've never done moxa ever since. You know, that kind of moxa, Kyotoshin, since then, and it's now 20 years just about. I just refuse. I will not be exposed to that. I can't handle it. So I have no experience with doing Kyotoshin. So.
Okay.
All right. Anything else?
No, I don't think I have anything.
That was very useful. Thank you so kindly, Avi. Lovely.
You are most welcome, and we'll talk soon. Happy New Year, and
Happy New Year.
May all the rats be very scientific and very civil.
Yeah. All right.
But not in my house, please.
Yeah, not in my house
basement. All right. Well, enjoy the week.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.